My sister is beautiful and smart, always able to easily win others' affection. It makes ordinary me seem like a timid little mouse. My parents said, how can you compare to your sister? My childhood friend said, Judya, and you don't seem like sisters. I asked him, what does it look like? He sniffled and said, like a princess and her maid. Until I met Sunyi, the parents pulled their daughter over, proudly introducing how outstanding she was to the other family. I was sneaking a glance at the cookies on the table, but he walked past everyone and held me tightly in his arms. Mine, he said, and Judya had an oval face, large eyes, and fair skin. Her eyelashes were long, like a fan. Usually when people see me, they ask my mom, is your child a child model? My mom would then smile with her lips pursed and say, not at all, not at all, looking very proud. Then I called out again, Mom. The person was surprised, seeing a passerby child's face with a runny nose and cheeks red from the cold, and asked, is this also your daughter? Mom's mouth turned downward, forming a very indifferent expression as she said, yes, the younger one. The man laughed. Could it be that all the nutrients in the womb were taken by the older one? Mom also laughed. That's also because the older one is capable, and Judya took my nutrients. A casual joke from an adult. The child took it seriously, for a long time. I held a grudge against Judya. Actually, it wasn't that long, 2 or 3 months, maybe. Specifically, it shows in me snatching her fruit to eat, bright red strawberries, shiny, glossy cherries, durian with its strange smell. Mom always prepared food for Judya, the big plate, leaving a pile of scraps for me. After finishing my own portion, I still craved more, so I secretly took some from her bowl to eat. After a few times, my parents found out, and Judya cried, saying, my sister stole my fruit. She cried like the little mermaid in the fairy tale book illustrations, shedding pearl-like tears, pitiful and adorable. I stiffened my neck and said, you stole my nutrients when you were in the womb. She said, I didn't. I argued unreasonably. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. I got so worked up that I was winking, grimacing, and contorting my face wildly, made to look like a demon descending to earth by Judya, a sharp-tongued old witch bullying the little princess. It made my mom so angry that she grabbed a clothes hanger and spanked my butt. What nonsense are you talking? Not only are you ugly, but your heart is so malicious. I jumped up and down, dodging my mom's clothes hanger. I howled and begged for mercy. I was wrong. I was wrong. Mom put her hands on her hips and said, your sister doesn't owe you anything. If I see you snatching your sister's things again, I'll beat you to death. Judya didn't steal my nutrition. Then why is she so beautiful? Am I really that ordinary looking? I just can't figure it out. Why do both mom and dad treat her better? It doesn't make sense. I'll go ask someone else. Downstairs in the residential complex, Ji Shu and I sat side by side, each with half a popsicle. Do you have an older brother? I asked Ji Shu. He slurped his noodles. Yes. What's up? So, does your mom treat your brother better too? What do you mean by better? He looks at me. I thought for a moment and said, it's like, when serving food, she always gives more to my brother, gives him more fruit, and only signs him up for tutoring classes. He thought for a moment and shook his head. No, but isn't it a good thing not to attend tutoring classes? We both exchanged a glance. Indeed, Mom enrolled Judya in a lot of classes, like piano lessons, etiquette training, hosting, and so on. Every time she went out, she had to wear a pretty little dress and dress up beautifully. Fill every spare moment to the brim, but I'm different. I can run out and have fun anytime, anywhere. While I was building sandcastles with the kids in the neighborhood, Judya was attending cram school. Cram school, it's really tough, thinking about it this way. Judya is so pitiful. I felt a sense of balance in my heart right away. Ji Shu asked, do you have a sister? I said, yes. He let out an, oh, and didn't ask any more. Only the sound of the two of them slurping remained. I regained a sense of inexplicable balance. I never caused trouble at home again. I even felt a bit of sympathy for Judya. I can go out and play whenever I want. I also have a lot of friends. That day, I was having so much fun with my friends that I lost track of time. By the time I realized it, the sun had long since disappeared. The streetlights in the neighborhood have all turned on. Friends were taken away one by their parents who came to pick them up, angry, worried, scolding, or gentle. They were all taken away by their parents, Ji Shu was also dragged back by his brother, who had him by the ear. His brother looks quite similar to him. He seems more handsome than Ji Shu. Before leaving, Ji Shu turned back to remind me, "Hurry home, little one." The bustling amusement park suddenly fell silent. Only then did I realize I was the only one left. So quiet. I look up at my own home. It's tall. The living room light is on. Why aren't Mom and Dad coming to find me? I kicked the small stone at my feet. If it were Nijia who didn't come home, there's no such possibility. Mom is always with Nijia. Go learn all kinds of courses. Actually, I could go back right away, but I don't know who I'm competing with. I just stubbornly refuse to take a step, squatting down, drawing kittens in the sand, drawing castles, drawing princesses, drawing bows, drawing. The entire sandy ground turned into a drawing paper, just as it was about to be filled. People coming and going from work had all returned. No one came to find me either. There are fewer and fewer people in the neighborhood. My stomach also started growling. The wind rustled the leaves. It made a rustling sound, like a ghost crashing through the trees. My spine stiffened, and I didn't dare look back, so I took off running. I rushed all the way to the building, took the elevator, and banged on the door, as if a ghost were chasing. 3, 2, 1 more second and I'll be taken away. I'm about to cry from anxiety. The door opened. A bright white light shone from inside the door. The ghost instantly vanished. I wasn't taken away. It was Mom who opened the door. When she saw me, she snorted. "Where have you been again? Coming home so late? I left some food for you. It's in the pot." I am immersed in the joy of having survived a disaster of my own making. I just foolishly said with delight, "Thank you, Mom. Hurry up and change your shoes to come in and eat." Nijia was watching cartoons in the living room. I quickly finished my meal and went over to watch with her. A little detective story. The old man's ruby had been stolen. For suspects, a suspect with a big round face, small eyes, and a shifty, suspicious appearance emerged. I said, "It must be him," and Nijia glanced at me. "Too lazy to bother with me," I said. "Do you believe it? Let's make a bet. If I win, you have to give me half of your pocket money." She didn't say a word, playing it cool. I stared at her with wide eyes. She got annoyed by me and clicked her tongue. "Reason," I said. "He looks like a bad person at first glance." "Oh," Nijia said. "He looks quite a bit like you." My anger surged, and I was just about to confront her. Mom called out, "Jia, come practice the piano." Nijia's face immediately fell. She went over reluctantly. I felt a surge of schadenfreude again. "Keep watching TV," Mom said. Shao, "No more watching. Your sister needs to practice the piano. Don't disturb her." I let out an "oh," muted the TV, and kept watching. Damn TV station. Just when it's time to reveal who the real villain is. It's to be continued. Another week to wait. I'm filled with resentment. Even Ji Shu noticed. We each had a swing, swaying back and forth, he said. "Who upset you again?" I'm furious at the TV station," Ji Shu said. "I think it's him too. He looks just like a big rat." We exchanged a glance. "High five, good friend. Did your mom scold you last time you went back?" "We haven't," I said. He looked at me with envy. "Your mom is so nice." I didn't say anything, feeling that something was off. Just then, Nijia returned from her extracurricular class. Probably a piano lesson. She was wearing a beautiful pink tulle dress. With shiny hair clips in her hair, Mother held her hand and walked home. Far in the distance, I shouted loudly, "Mom, sister." Mother waved her hand and called out from afar, "Don't play too late." Nijia glanced back and followed her mother as they walked away. When I turned my head, Ji Shu's ice cream fell to the ground. It got covered in sand. "What are you doing?" Ji Shu opened his mouth wide and pointed at Nijia's retreating figure. "Is that your sister?" I said. "Yes." He looked at Nijia, then at me, then back at Nijia. "You were adopted, weren't you?" "I am angry, you big stupid pig," Ji Shu said. "Your sister is like a princess." Actually, I also think Nijia looks like a princess, but at this moment, I especially don't want to agree with him. Seeing that I'm ignoring him, he adds, "You and your sister don't look like sisters. What are you thinking about?" He thought for a moment and said, "Like a princess and her maid." "What kind of friends are like that?" I bumped into Ji Shu. He fell into the sand, getting covered in it. "Hey, I'm just telling the truth, dead pig." I shook him off and ran away. "We're breaking up," I was so angry I was about to cry. I went back and tore the little card Ji-shu gave me into pieces. Ji-shu is a big stupid pig. We are the ones who are friends, even if his brother is more handsome than him. I wouldn't say it to his face. Tiny pieces of paper were scattered all over the floor. Mom saw it. Scold me, what are you doing again? And I shao. Trash is scattered everywhere, not clean, I retorted while picking up the paper scraps and throwing them back into the trash can. Last time, my sister also spilled soup outside. Why didn't you scold her? That was an accident on her part. Mine was an accident too. I got excited. Tears welled up in my eyes. Was she just careless? And I did it on purpose. Mom stood with her hands on her hips, glaring at me. You're even talking back now. Why don't you learn from your sister? She's much more obedient than you. What are you crying for? It's so embarrassing, I said. That's because you've never scolded her. Mom laughed angrily and said, so now you're blaming us instead. She wants to get the clothes hanger. I quickly ran back to the room and closed the door. She didn't chase after me. After a while, the sound of a door closing came from outside. Mom took Nijia out again. I pulled out a small mirror. I thought bitterly. Everyone likes Nijia, just because she's pretty. I'm not that ugly either. The mirror reflects my tear-streaked face, dirty, like a bitter melon. I scared myself and quickly threw the mirror aside. I remembered the last time I saw Nijia shed tears, like a fairy. Seriously, I feel a bit resentful. Why did Mom have to make Nijia so beautiful? I feel like the whole world has hurt me. Mom and Dad prefer Nijia. Even my friends would fall for her when they see Nijia. I decided to be a cold-hearted person, let them all regret it. The next day at school, Ji-shu greeted me. I pretended not to see him. I walked past without even glancing sideways. Ji-shu insisted on coming closer, waving his hand in front of me. Are you nearsighted? I said coldly. Please don't talk to me. We've already broken off our friendship, he said with a smile. Are you really angry? It's my fault. Please don't be mad at me. As he spoke, he took out a bottle of milk and handed it to me. On it was written a line of foreign words I didn't recognize. Here, my aunt bought this imported milk. It's really expensive. I'm feeling a bit greedy. At home, all the good food is always given to Nijia first. I was just about to take it. He took out another pink bottle with a strawberry drawn on it. This one, strawberry flavor. For your sister. My outstretched hand immediately pulled back. Ji-shu remained completely unaware. This strawberry flavor is sweet. She'll definitely like it. I didn't say anything, quickening her pace. She walked around him. Ji-shu called out from behind, shao, and I shao. Eating in the evening, I had a cold expression on my face, ate coldly placed the bowl back in the kitchen, and coldly sat in front of the TV to watch cartoons. But no one paid any attention. Mom noticed that Nijia didn't eat the garlic, nor did she notice that I had become cold-hearted. My cold-heartedness lasted until today's cartoon show finished. The real culprit turned out to be the seemingly kind old man, not that man with a cunning and sly face. Damn it, I failed in my attempt to win big with a small stake. I glanced at Nijia guiltily. She snorted. I felt a bit pained. I lost the bet, so I'll give you half of my pocket money. Who cares about your little bit? She said. I shouted. I want an increase in my allowance. Mom said. What you have is enough. Can't I at least get half of what my sister gets? I tried to act cute. Please, Mom said coldly. Your sister can play the piano, host events, sing, and has excellent grades. And I shao. What do you have? I was stunned. Yes, I can't do anything. I never signed up for any extracurricular classes. That is, I whispered softly. That's because I didn't learn anything at all. Do you think you would have succeeded if you had learned? Mom's face turned cold, looking like she didn't want to talk anymore. All right, Nijia, go practice the piano. The melodious sound of the piano drifted out again from Nijia's exclusive piano room, accompanied by Mom's voice praising her. So good. I stared blankly at the TV screen. Vivid colors blur into large patches of color before my eyes. Watching cartoons used to be one of the things that made me happiest, but now, I feel special, especially special, sad. I hid under the covers and cried. It was both damp and stuffy. I don't know when I finally fell asleep. The next day, my eyes were swollen when I woke up. I kept my head down, quickly finished breakfast, and hurried back to my room. Someone knocked on the door. Mom went over and opened it. Auntie, hello. I'm here to see Ni Xiao Xiao. It was Ji Shu's voice. I was planning to stay mad at him for another week. I didn't expect him to come all the way to my place to ask for forgiveness. I felt a wave of relief. Then came a sense of comfort. Ni Jia didn't have any friends coming to play with her. I decided to forgive Ji Shu. Thinking this way, I covered my eyes with my hands, trying to make the swelling go down faster. But I waited for a long time. I didn't hear Ji Shu call me. Instead, there were people chatting in the living room. Laughter could be heard from time to time. I opened the door and quietly glanced outside. Ji Shu sat beside Ni Jia, smiling with extreme flattery. It seemed like he was telling Ni Jia a joke. Ni Jia was laughing happily. Ji Shu was even happier. What's this? I was a bit angry. I'll never forgive him again. Ji Shu happened to look over and was startled. Ni Xiao Xiao, what happened to your eyes? I got bitten by mosquitoes, I mumbled. Ni Jia laughed uncontrollably. Doesn't she look like that big round face? Now that your eyes are small, it's even more similar. Ji Shu was taken aback for a moment, then chimed in, similar. The two of them laughed and joked around. A great humiliation, I said angrily. You're the one who looks like it. You two are the ugliest in the whole world, uglier than a pig. I angrily slammed the door shut. Outside the door, the faint whispers of the two could still be heard. I secretly took out a small mirror to look at myself again. Not that similar, really, at most. He's like a big rat, I'm like a little mouse. Little mice aren't ugly either. Big eyes, a small nose, and a tiny mouth. Still pretty cute, though. I sulked. Then I cheered myself up again. When Jishu was leaving, Mom told me to see him off downstairs. I was reluctant. Mom said, that's impolite. I sent him out with a cold expression. Jishu stole a glance at me. Ni Xiao Xiao, don't come again in the future. I said, even if you do come, don't say you're looking for me. Just say you're looking for Ni Jia directly. I don't want to be friends with you anymore. Jishu also got angry. What's wrong? Ni Jia is just prettier than you, and I'm happy to be friends with her. I snorted, showing disdain, judging people by their appearance. Jishu was annoyed. Aren't you the same? You saw that ugly big-faced guy and said he was a bad person. You're the one judging by appearances. I was taken aback. He seemed to have found a weapon and continued, you must be jealous that your sister is prettier than you. He was so certain. No wonder you never told me about your sister. You don't bully Ni Jia at home, do you? Ha ha ha, Ni Xiao Xiao, you seem like that kind of bad woman. He said this in a joking tone. His face was reflected in the elevator door. The metallic pattern stretched and twisted that face. It became a form I no longer recognized. I pressed my lips tightly together. My eyes were so sore and swollen that they could no longer shed tears. Jealous, perhaps so. But, I have never said a single bad word about Ni Jia in front of anyone, never. Ji Shu is my friend, he knows. I have never complained about Ni Jia in front of him. You are disgusting, I said. Ji Shu was stunned. He turned his head to look at me. I met his gaze and said, word by word, I really regret being friends with you. I won't play with you anymore, probably realizing I was serious. Ji Shu snapped back angrily. Do you think I care? Fine, we won't be friends then. I'm friends with Ni Jia. The elevator arrived. He walked out still glaring at me. Don't you dare. I pressed the close button. When I returned, Mom had already set lunch on the table. Ni Jia's bowl was piled high with food, like a small mountain. I quickly changed my shoes and sat down to eat, rushing to grab the food to eat. Mom glared over. I immediately swallowed a big mouthful and flattered, Mom. The food you made is really delicious. That's right. Mom immediately smiled and picked up another piece of spare ribs for Ni Jia. Eat more. I pretended not to see it and continued eating. It's okay if Mom and Dad prefer Ni Jia. It's also okay if my friends prefer Ni Jia. The world is so big. If I try hard to eat, grow up quickly, leave this place, definitely. There will definitely be someone who likes me a little more. I never spoke to Ji Shu again. When we ran into each other in the neighborhood, we acted like strangers. He didn't hang out with Ni Jia either, because Ni Jia was very busy. My life is still the same as before. Go to school, come home from school, on vacation, play, criticized by Mom. Saturday afternoon, Ni Jia unusually did not go to practice the piano. Mom and Dad dressed very formally, saying they were going to have dinner at someone else's house. Mom dressed Nijia in a pretty little dress and braided her hair into beautiful little pigtails. She put on a sparkling little crown, then turned her head to remind me, dress up nicely. I rummaged through the closet and pulled out the floral short-sleeved shirt I usually couldn't bear to wear, and pinned a bow hair clip in my hair. But Mom didn't look at me. She just went out holding Nijia's hand together with Dad. I followed behind them, glancing at my reflection in the elevator. I gave myself a little praise. It's quite cute too. Mom and Dad took us into a large villa. We passed through a beautiful garden. Dad was chatting with an uncle. Mom pulled Nijia along and proudly introduced her to the beautiful aunt. This is my daughter, Jia. She can play the piano and host events. Her teacher says she's especially talented. Nijia called out sweetly, "Hello, Auntie." The beautiful aunt smiled and patted her head. I stood to the side, waiting for my mom to introduce me. But then my mom changed the subject and asked, "What about your child?" The aunt smiled, looking a bit uneasy. "He's in his room. He should be down in a bit. He doesn't really like to talk much," Mom said. "It's perfect that the two kids are about the same age, so they can play together." Auntie just smiled. No one paid any attention to me. I had no choice but to sneak a peek at the little cookies on the table, colorful English letters. They looked delicious. Footsteps suddenly came from upstairs. "Someone is coming down." I instinctively looked toward the source of the sound. That was the first time I met Sun-yi. In my limited perception, Nijia was already very beautiful, but Sun-yi was even more beautiful than her. The young man was like white porcelain in a display case, delicate and exquisite, yet with an aloofness that keeps others at a distance. "Everyone naturally gravitates toward beautiful things," Mom immediately praised. "This child really inherited all the best traits from both of you." Even Nijia couldn't help but smile at him, but I'm trying hard to correct my bad habit of judging people by their appearance, so I just glanced at him, and tried to shift my attention back to the little cookies. Auntie said, "Xiao-yi, this is Auntie, this is Jia, your little sister, and this is... Can I go over and get a piece to eat in a little while? I think I should still ask Auntie." A light, faint, cool fragrance suddenly enveloped me. I was held tightly in someone's arms. I looked up in astonishment. The young man's face was right before my eyes. His pupils were very light, like the faintest wisp of smoke gray in an ink wash painting. "Mine," he said. "I have never had this kind of experience before." My head felt dizzy from the scent on him. The young man held on by himself, as if completely indifferent to the astonishment of those around him. The aunt said in a panic, "Xiao-yi, you're scaring your little sister, let go quickly." But he held on tighter. "I won't let go." Mom smiled and smoothed things over. It seems the two children really hit it off. The aunt had no choice but to say, "Take your little sister to play." He took my hand and led me upstairs. I followed him, instinctively glancing at Nijia. I wanted to call her to come along. She pursed her lips, looking rather displeased. I closed my mouth. I had never seen so many toys. There was even a room specifically for storing toys, building blocks in a box, a whole wall of models. He led me into the room without saying a word. I fiddled with my fingers and said in a friendly tone, "What's your name?" "Sun-yi." "My name is Ni Xiao." The young man looked at me, his eyes clear and bright. "Do. No, it's Ni Xiao." I corrected him. He insisted, "Dao. What a weirdo." I'm a bit annoyed. Who gives someone a nickname the moment they meet? Being good-looking doesn't make it okay. Who is Dao? Hamster. My anger flared even hotter. Do I really look that much like a rodent? Where is it? In the courtyard. I want to see just how similar it is. Let's go take a look at it. The youth's long, slender eyelashes drooped slightly. "I can't see him," he said. "He's dead." I choked up instantly. I wanted to comfort him, but Sun-yi just looked at me. He is different from all my other friends. Taciturn, solitary, doesn't like to smile, probably not many friends. So, mine actually means I'm like his hamster. For a moment, I followed his train of thought. My heart softened. All right, I am actually Dao. I've come to be friends with you again. The boy's gaze instantly turned strange, akin to looking at a fool. Do is a hamster. You are a human. I was furious. Who told you to call me Dao first? Is that not allowed? He asked. You and it are very similar. I pursed my lips, remembering that Auntie said he doesn't like to talk. Even though he was very rude and quite strange, even though it's a bit uncomfortable to be told I resemble a hamster, but he lost one of his friends. Whatever you want, I said. Sun-yi and I were playing with building blocks in the room. It was the first time I had ever played with such a nice toy, and I built a little house. After thinking for a moment, I took the initiative to strike up a conversation with Sun-yi. Let me teach you how to build a house. Look, take this. Sun-yi sat beside me and built a helicopter, a skyscraper, a fire truck, me. Then I went back to playing on my own. The door behind me was opened, and Jia came in. Sun-yi didn't look at her, just lowered his head to watch me continue building the castle, and Jia walked over. Footsteps thudded. I looked up at her and asked, "Do you want to play together?" She ignored me, her eyes secretly glancing at Sun-yi. All right. I continued to lower my head and build the castle. Sun-yi also remained silent. The room suddenly fell quiet. After a while, Jia stamped her foot and strode out. At dinner time, looking at the dishes on the table, my eyes lit up again and again. Lobster, crab, cola chicken wings, sweet and sour ribs. I picked up a chicken wing and started munching on it, feeling quite pleased. I was about to take another bite. Suddenly, my mother tapped my hand. I was startled, and my mother gave me a discreet glare, whispering, "That's not proper." I lowered my head and started eating from my own bowl, yet there was an extra chicken wing in the bowl. I was taken aback for a moment. Another piece appeared. I turned my head and met Sun-yi's gaze directly. He added more dishes to my bowl, piling them up into a small mountain. It was the first time I had ever had a small mountain. He said, "Eat more, Bean." I didn't have time to be moved. I knew he was treating me like a hamster to feed. The expressions of the uncle and aunt suddenly became a bit strange. Dad and Mom didn't understand why, but Jia, her lips were already pursed. Now she seemed even more unhappy. I lowered my head and ate the food heartily. When we were leaving, the uncle and aunt saw us off at the door. The adults were still talking. The aunt smiled and said, "Come again next time." Mom and Dad responded in agreement. Jia, with a sullen face, put on her shoes and rushed out. Mom and Dad noticed and hurriedly said their goodbyes. Chasing after her, I was still crouching down tying my shoelaces, quickly picked up the pace. After a moment's thought, I turned back and said, "Goodbye, Uncle and Auntie." The beautiful auntie smiled at me, patted my head, and said, Xiao, come play with Xiao-yi again next Saturday." "Okay," I nodded. "Hurry up and catch up with Mom and Dad." I didn't tell Mom and Dad about this, because Mom doesn't really keep an eye on me on Saturdays, and Jia always has a lot going on. Mom has to take care of her, so she can't look after me. Sun-yi speaks very little. Every time I come, I play with his toys in the playroom. He sits next to me and reads. Occasionally, I would strike up a conversation with him, but we only exchanged a few words. Actually, it was because the toys at his house were too much fun. Once I started playing, I would lose myself in them. I had to go back before dinner. I was always afraid that if I returned too late, my parents wouldn't leave much food for me, until one day, I was so engrossed in building the bridge that I lost track of time, until the aroma of home-cooked food wafted up from downstairs at his house. Only then did I exclaim, "Ah," and jump up to run off. "Sun-yi, I'm leaving. See you next week." The pretty aunt downstairs saw me running out. "Xiao," I shouted as I ran. "Goodbye, Auntie, I'm going home." She stopped me and smiled. "I cooked your portion. Stay and eat. I'll take you back in a little while." I glanced at the kitchen, where the aroma was coming from, then looked at the door, hesitating. "Mom and Dad." She patted my head. "Auntie will help you talk to them." I immediately surrendered to the delicious food. "Thank you, Auntie." I ate until my stomach was full. I patted my belly contentedly. Aunt drove me to the downstairs of my home. I was surprised to find that both my mom and dad were waiting for me downstairs. Opening the car door, I exclaimed happily, "Mom, Dad." My parents walked over, casually patted my head, and smiled at Aunt. "I'm sorry to trouble you." I had no idea Xiao went. "I've caused you trouble," Auntie smiled. Xiao is adorable. The two kids get along well, and Xiao-yi loves playing with her too. Being praised, I felt a bit happy. The aunt turned to me. "Come again next week, Xiao. I nodded. The car drove away into the distance. Dad patted my head, and Mom looked at me with a smile. "Xiao, Dad will take you there next week." "Thank you, Dad." Mom and Dad seemed very happy too. When dividing the strawberries, even my share was as many as Jia's. But Jia was not happy. She glanced at the strawberries in my bowl. She gave me a glare. Mom said, "Eat up, Xiao Xiao, the strawberries are very sweet." I paused for a moment, then picked one up and put it in my mouth. It's really sweet. In the past, after I finished eating, I always still craved what was in Nijeja's bowl. I always thought that next time I must ask Mom to give me a bigger portion. But every time, Nijeja's bowl had more. The sweet juice of the strawberry bursts open in my mouth. I got what I wanted, but why am I not as happy as I imagined? On Saturday, Dad did take me there, but Nijeja was also in the car. I was startled. "What are you doing here?" She let out a humph. Dad said while driving, "Xiao Xiao, Jejia is always attending extracurricular classes and doesn't have many friends. It's perfect for the three of you to play together. You're in the middle, so take care of your sister too." But, I pouted, there are plenty of people who want to be friends with her. For example, Ji Shu, Dad said. "Oh. Doesn't Sunny play the piano? Jejia does too, so they're sure to have something to talk about. Isn't it better to have more people to play with?" he said to himself. I looked out the window. The street scenes outside the car flew by. But, I wanted to speak. But that was my friend. But then I thought of Ji Shu again. What if Sunny also wants to be friends with Nijeja? Even though he's a bit quiet. Even though he doesn't like talking to people. But he's very smart. And Nijeja is also very smart. Just in case, they might actually get along well in conversation. I'm not in high spirits. All the way until we got off the car, Dad specifically asked if Uncle was at home. After receiving a negative reply, he told us to come pick him up later and then left. I went upstairs with ease and entered the playroom, and Nijeja followed me inside. Sunny sat on the carpet reading a book. He didn't even look up when I entered. And it wasn't until I sat down in front of the building blocks that he moved over to sit beside me, and Nijeja followed and sat down next to him. Unlike last time, she didn't remain silent but instead initiated the conversation. "What are you looking at?" The voice was crisp and clear, like biting into a sweet, crunchy peach. I fiddled with the building blocks, holding my breath to listen to their conversation. "Science popularization," Sunny replied, and Nijeja exclaimed, "Wow. Shall we watch it together then?" "No," she choked for a moment. "You can play the piano." I can too," and Nijeja smiled, her eyes curving. "What level have you passed?" "I didn't pass." "Then can you play Beethoven's Pathetic?" "Yes." "Great, I can too. How about we try playing it together?" I stole a glance, and Nijeja blinked her eyes, her eyelashes fluttering, looking both charming and adorable. I don't even know how to read sheet music. I felt a bit frustrated and could only pretend I hadn't heard anything. Holding the building block, I hesitated for a long time before putting it in place. "No desire to," he said, and Nijeja's smile froze. I guess she probably hadn't encountered someone as eccentric as Sunny before. Although he usually talks to me like that too, I choose to be tolerant, but Nijeja had always been met with smiling faces since childhood, so encountering Sunny was too much of a contrast. The air fell into an eerie silence for a moment. Sunny asked, "Can you play the piano?" "Hey." It took me a moment to react. "No, I can't." Nijeja seemed to have found a topic. She hasn't learned anything, so how could she possibly know? Whenever there's a holiday, she's out playing, and her homework is always done in a rush. She didn't do well on the last exam either, always careless. My face flushed red. "Why are you saying all this?" Nijeja was acting strange today. She looked at Sunny, as if seeking agreement from him. Perhaps it was an opportunity for them to criticize me together. Sunny let out a soft, and simply asked me, "What can you do?" "She can't do anything," Nijeja blurted out. "I will," I retorted to her. That day, Mom said the same thing. I cried for a long time. My eyes feel sore, my head is throbbing with pain. I can only comfort myself, so I thought a lot. I can make string figures, I can make butterflies and stars, I can also tell stories. The aunt downstairs once asked me to look after her little sister, and I told 8 or 9 stories in one go. I can also. The more I talked, the more confident I became, but Nijeja snorted with a laugh. I glared at her. She was just about to speak. "That's amazing," Sunny said. "I can't do any of these." Nijeja left in a huff that day. She never went to Sunny's house again after that, but I went every week. To be honest, I liked Sunny. A large part of it was because he had so many toys at home that I had never played with. Although Sunny still spoke very little, I played with his toys. so I had to take responsibility for him. The pretty aunt said Sunny doesn't like to talk and has no friends, but in fact, no matter what I say, he always responds. I included him in the category of good friends. One day, when I was coming back from Sunny's house, as I passed by the playground in the residential area, I saw Ji Shu sitting alone on a swing, swaying slowly. I pretended not to see him and tried to walk around from the other side. And I Xiao Xiao, Ji Shu called out to me. I pretended not to hear and quickened my pace. He jumped off the swing and chased after me. And I Xiao Xiao, he grabbed my sleeve. I shook it off and turned my head to look at him. His expression was awkward, his lips tightly pressed together. He didn't say a word. We just stared at each other. I turned to leave again. Hey. He quickly grabbed me again, his voice dropping low. Where have you been lately? I looked for you in the courtyard but couldn't find you. He couldn't bring himself to look me in the eye, his gaze shifting restlessly. Well, didn't we agree to hang out? And you said we'd pick a gift for my brother together. What have you been up to? I haven't seen you on weekends at all. He speaks a bit fast, but the more he talks, the more natural it becomes, as if trying to lightly brush past the fact that we had a falling out. What do you want from me? Ji Shu blushed. It's just that thing, he said in shame and annoyance. Is it necessary to be angry for so long? I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have said that to you, and I shouldn't have. He lowered his head, took out a roll of strawberry milk from his hoodie pocket, and handed it to me. It's the last one. And I couldn't bear to drink it. Here, please don't be angry anymore, okay? The packaging still carried his body warmth. I looked down at the row of milk, remembering how we used to argue a lot, but every time, I was the one who took the initiative to find him. I always thought it was no big deal. Friends argue and then make up. I'm more afraid of losing friends than losing face. I don't have much to begin with. So everyone who stays by my side is precious to me. I'm not angry anymore, I said. Ji Shu's eyes lit up instantly. Then come to my house to play tomorrow. I bought a new deck of game cards. I shook my head and handed the milk back to him. But I don't want to be friends with you anymore. He froze, a bit flustered. He opened his mouth to say something, but I turned and headed home. The wind blows on my face, a bit chilly. Friends are very precious, but my sincerity is equally precious. I know in the eyes of others, it may seem light and insignificant, but the more it is like this, the more I have to value myself. I don't want to give him a second chance anymore. After that, I occasionally ran into Ji Shu in the neighborhood. He wanted to talk to me, but I turned my face away and walked off. At first, he tried to stop me, but after many times, he just watched from afar and no longer approached. Time pushes us forward. I slowly grew up, and Jejia remained very beautiful, and her grades consistently ranked at the top. She was the standard, someone else's child, in the teacher's mouths. I gradually stretched out, grew taller, and lost some of the baby fat on my face, though I was still far from being considered pretty, but I no longer compare the strawberries in her bowl like I did when I was a child. I started making more friends. On weekends, I still went to Tsinyi's house without fail. Building blocks and models were gradually replaced by stacks of exercise books and reference materials. We often sit side by side at the large desk in his room, each doing our own homework. After Tsinyi became more sensible, he never called me Daodu again. One day, I belatedly realized that his way of addressing me had changed to Xiao Xiao. I looked at him with a face full of surprise. He is quite at ease. The young man has grown a lot. He is a head taller than me. The quiet and withdrawn nature of his childhood has evolved into a cold and aloof demeanor where he speaks sparingly. Transformed into the currently popular, unattainable beauty, while doing homework with him, Sunny rummaged through his bag and pulled out 4 or 5 fragrant pink envelopes. I exclaimed with excitement, even more thrilled than he was. Love letters. He hummed in acknowledgement, casually set it aside, and pulled out the Olympiad problems to start working on them. While doing my homework, I chattered away. Let me tell you, someone in our class is dating. The other day, they were seen holding hands after school. I always wondered why that girl only brought water for that guy. Young boys and girls experiencing their first crush. Those of us who weren't in relationships were even more excited about it than they were. Oh, by the way, my sister, do you remember her? The really pretty one. She often gets confessed to as well. Jejia grew up to be even more beautiful and became a prominent figure in her grade. When I first entered the class, many people asked me, Xiao Xiao, what's your relationship with Jejia? I would say, "She's my sister." The other person let out an "ah" and immediately leaned in affectionately. Later, when they realized that Nijia and I weren't very close, they gradually drifted away. There were also boys who wanted to use the excuse of walking home with me. In reality, it was just to strike up a conversation with Nijia. I've long been used to it, talking about it now. It's just a joke. Sunny tapped my textbook with his pen. "You wrote it wrong. The units weren't converted." I quickly corrected it. Mom even specifically told her not to start dating too early. He turned his head to look at me. The boy's eyelashes were long and delicate. His skin was cold and pale as jade, shimmering under the light with a faint, porcelain-like glaze. His eyes were bright and sparkling. I met his gaze, even after being friends with him for so many years. I still couldn't withstand the close-up beauty attack. "Wow," I said, "you're so beautiful, Sunny." He lowered his head and continued working on the problem. I also continued writing, but in my heart, I was thinking, making friends with Sunny when I was a kid was such a great deal. At the end of the year, my parents wanted to invite Sunny's family for a meal. Before going, my mom specifically reminded me to dress neatly. Nijia wore a dress. I bundled up in thick layers of clothing and was surprised to see a glimpse of her legs under her skirt. "Aren't you cold?" She adjusted her hair in the hallway mirror, glancing at me through the reflection. "These are called bare leg magic tights, you country bumpkin." I rubbed my hands together. She looked me up and down and laughed. "You're wearing that." "I always dress like this when I go to his house," I said calmly. Nijia choked for a moment and glared at me. "Don't think he likes you. You're so ordinary looking, yet you always stick by his side. How shameless. He just sees you as a friend. I suggest you have some self-awareness." I wondered, we are just friends, after all. What else could it be? She rolled her eyes at me and walked away. The dinner was arranged in a rather elegant private room at a restaurant. Nijia naturally took the seat between her mother and aunt, sitting with her back straight and a sweet smile on her face. As soon as I sat down, Sunny naturally took the seat next to me. "Say hello to my parents politely. The older you get, the more human-like you become." I feel a bit emotional. The adults exchanged pleasantries, and the conversation quickly turned to the children. Mom has indeed started her Nijia Outstanding Achievements Report meeting again, from the most recent monthly exam ranking, to a newly won English speech competition award, and then to the ideal high school. She went on and on without stopping. The uncles and aunties maintained polite smiles, occasionally nodding. When Mom asked Sunny about his high school plans, he answered succinctly, "First high." "What a coincidence," Mom said with delight. "Our Jia is also aiming for first high, though we're not sure if she'll make it into the top class. If you two end up at the same school, you can look out for each other." Then I asked Sunny how his recent exams went, and after hearing an astonishingly high score, Mom immediately said, "Jia still needs to work harder." This time, she was still more than 10 points short in math. Oh, she really has to put in the effort in high school. Math has always been her weak spot. Auntie had been listening with a smile all along, but at this moment, she suddenly turned to me and asked gently, "What about Xiao Xiao? Where do you want to go for high school?" My grades have always been in the middle of the pack. On good days, I occasionally manage to climb to the front, so I chuckled and said, "Let's see where I can get into. I'll do my best." Mom immediately shot me a glance. This child has no ambition at all, not like Jia, whose goals have always been clear. She's determined to get into no one high school. The aunt, however, smiled and said, "I think Xiao Xiao is doing just fine, steady and optimistic." For a child, happiness and health are what matter most. Mom was momentarily speechless, her smile faltering slightly. She picked up her teacup and took a sip, not continuing the topic. After the meal, the adults were deep in conversation, moving from children's education to work and investments. The warmth from the heater and the steam from the dishes in the private room mingled together, making everyone feel a bit drowsy. I had eaten my fill and was feeling a bit stifled, so I whispered, "I'm going out for some fresh air." No one paid any attention. I quietly pushed back my chair and walked out. Outside the restaurant, the winter wind blew in my face. Fortunately, I was bundled up and didn't feel cold. Not long after, light footsteps sounded from behind. Sunny stopped beside me. He wasn't dressed too warmly. The young man had already grown tall, standing straight and upright like a stubborn bamboo. The wind tousled the black hair on his forehead. revealing a smooth brow and distinct brow bone. The profile line, under the interplay of distant neon lights and nearby street lamps, looked almost unreal in its beauty, like those close-up shots in youth films, perfectly lit, straight out of a shoujo manga as the male lead. I was just about to sigh in admiration. Someone else has come out. It's Nijujia. It's very cold outside, and she was already dressed lightly. She can't withstand the night chill. The tip of her nose and cheeks quickly turned red from the cold, and a layer of moisture welled up in her eyes, glistening under the light. She didn't look at me, her gaze fixed directly on Sunyi. She pursed her lips slightly, as if making some kind of decision. Then, cautiously, she called out, "Sunyi." Sunyi looked at her, his expression devoid of emotion. "What is it?" The girl's slender figure trembled slightly in the night breeze. Nijujia sniffled, straightened her back, and looked directly at him. Her voice quivered a little in the wind, yet carried a stubborn clarity. "I will definitely surpass you in the high school entrance exam," like issuing a challenge, yet I distinctly saw something else in her eyes, moist from the cold, the girl's anticipation, her unease, and a certain sign of budding affection. Top student, arch rival, beautiful young man and woman. Almost instantly, a script for a youthful romance began to take shape in my mind, so awkward. I subtly shifted a bit to the side, trying to make myself less noticeable. Then, I heard Sunyi's calm voice, slightly scattered by the wind. "Oh, just one word." The girl's face flushed and then paled, but in the end, she said nothing. Nijujia bit her lower lip, the mist in her eyes quickly gathering, almost on the verge of falling. She abruptly turned around, pulled open the door, and ran inside. It seemed like witnessing the opening scene of an idol drama. But the male lead seemed not yet enlightened. I awkwardly rubbed my hands together. Sunyi turned his head to look at me and asked, "Are you cold?" Rubbing hands like a fly, I shook my head. "Not cold." Eyes meet. The boy's eyes were as clear as a lake under a cold night, crystal clear. He suddenly reached out and gathered both of my hands into his palms. The boy's palms were dry and warm, with distinct knuckles, still bearing a slight, thin callus from holding a pen too much. Completely enveloping my hand. "It's clearly very cold," he said, his tone matter-of-fact. I was really startled. This kid is terrifyingly formidable. He actually mastered flirting skills without a teacher. I looked at him as if he were a monster. He remained calm, even slightly furrowing his brow as if wondering why my hand was so cold. I get it now. He was already a bit slower than others in gaining wisdom. In matters of emotion, he's even less perceptive than an adult hamster. He probably still sees me as no different from Daodu, reasonable. The summer of the year I took the high school entrance exam was exceptionally hot. On the day the results came out, the atmosphere at home was tense, and Nijujia checked her results first, and her score was very high, ensuring her a place at the top high school. Her mother was so happy that she kept praising her, and her father was beaming with joy. Nijujia's face was filled with a bright smile. But then she pretended to ask casually, "Mom, do you know how much Sunyi scored?" Her mother had already found out from her aunt and reported an astonishingly high score. Nijujia's smile faded a bit, and she pursed her lips, with a hint of unwillingness and stubbornness. "I will definitely work hard to surpass him next time." Dad chuckled happily beside her. "That's the spirit." They gathered around Nijujia, discussing the score cutoff, talking about what it would be like to get into the key class. Filled with laughter and cheerful conversation, I'm refreshing the query page, feeling a bit nervous. Nijujia noticed my nervous expression and raised her chin. "Shao, what's your score?" The page finally loaded. I looked at the number, blinked, and then carefully examined the score line comparison again. It seems, I also got into No. 1 high school. The atmosphere in the room froze for a moment. Mom walked over, looked at my screen, and confirmed it several times. "Really? That was so close. You just barely made it, relying on luck." I chuckled. The smile on Nijujia's face, which hadn't had time to fade, suddenly grew much fainter. High school life was busier than I had imagined. Nijujia entered the elite class without any suspense, remaining a prominent figure. Shortly after the start of the school year, she was hailed as the class beauty and hosted the opening ceremony, shining brightly. Sunyi, on the other hand, was in a separate teaching building, focusing entirely on competitions. His name was often mentioned. That super handsome competition student. I heard his scores are ridiculously high, just a bit aloof, my life was much simpler, attending classes, doing homework, and chatting with my desk mate about gossip. The number of times I met Sunny drastically decreased. The schedules of competition students were completely out of sync with ours, and we would occasionally bump into each other from afar at school. On weekends, I still went to his house to do homework together. After entering the second year of high school, the workload has increased a bit, the pace of learning has accelerated. Sunyi's parents hired a driver to take him to and from school, and they also arranged for me to ride along. On the first day of taking the car, I opened the door. Sunyi was already sitting in the back seat. When he saw me get in, he nodded and then tilted his head to catch some more sleep. I slid into the back seat and naturally started complaining to him about how difficult the math problems the teacher assigned yesterday were, how easy it was to doze off in class, and so on. Jejia got into the car a moment later. She glanced at us sitting in the back seat, paused for a moment, and then took the passenger seat. There was only the occasional sound of my voice in the car, along with Sunyi's brief responses. Jejia sat in the front, her back straight, never turning around. As we neared the school, Sunyi handed me a paper bag. I glanced inside. It held a bottle of milk and a bag of bread. Wow, thank you, I exclaimed in surprise. He said, you don't need to go to the convenience store during the break. I got out of the car. Jejia also followed and got out, slammed the car door shut. The next day, Jejia was earlier than me. As soon as I stepped out, I saw her pull open the back door and get in the car. I paused for a moment, then got into the passenger seat. Fasten your seatbelt. The car fell into silence. As the car started, Jejia took the initiative to speak, her voice crisp and clear. Did your competition class have another test today? Was it difficult? Not bad. The conversation was dry and difficult to sustain. The air inside the carriage seemed to freeze a bit. I turned my head to look at the scenery outside the window, thinking that I must not doze off in physics class today. Before getting out of the car, Sunny leaned over, reaching across the seat to hand me another paper bag. I took a look. Inside were coffee and macarons. Thank you. I got out of the car. This time, Jejia slammed the car door even louder than yesterday. On the third day, Jejia, with her backpack on, directly opened the passenger door. Later, she always sat in the front. My high school life was actually quite fulfilling. The coursework was heavier than before, but I had a good mindset. I knew I wasn't that smart, not like Jejia who understood things instantly, nor like Sunyi who was exceptionally talented, but I believe diligence can make up for lack of talent. I studied seriously when it was time to study, and when it was time to have fun, I played with my friends, gossiped, and read novels. I don't know from which day it started, but rumors about Sunyi and Jejia began to spread in the school. Have you heard? Jejia, the class beauty from the top class, and Sunyi from the competition class. Really, they know each other. It seems their families are acquainted. Someone saw them often coming to school in the same car. They're said to have grown up together since childhood. Alright, because I was too ordinary, I was automatically filtered out of the gossip. During the break, when I went to buy snacks with my classmates, I overheard them excitedly discussing this. My desk mate nudged me. Hey, Xiao, isn't Jejia your sister? Do you think there's really something going on between her and Sunyi? I thought about it for a moment and answered honestly, I don't know either. They just get along normally, I guess. What's it like to get along normally? Is there any spark? Someone pressed further. It's just normal conversation. I tried to recall. Nothing special. Everyone let out an oh, clearly not satisfied with this bland answer. Coincidentally, Jejia and a few of her friends walked over from a distance, chatting and laughing. Someone also teased, asking, Jejia, I heard you and Sunyi. My gaze and hers unintentionally met for a moment. Soon, she averted her gaze and laughed. Don't talk nonsense. We're just friends. Her friend beside her immediately teased with a smile. Just friends, huh? Senior year of high school felt like it had been put on fast forward, rushing right up to us in an instant. No one held high expectations for me to get into a prestigious university. This actually made me feel very little pressure. My parents' attention was almost entirely focused on Jejia, concerned about her weekly and monthly exams, analyzing her ranking fluctuations. As for me, they usually just asked, are you keeping up with your studies lately? And after getting an okay response, they wouldn't dig deeper. I followed my own pace, attending classes when I needed to and doing practice problems when I had to. When I'm tired, I joke around with my classmates, and on weekends, I go to Tsunyi's house to do homework and mooch meals, asking him to explain problems to me. However, Nijejia became visibly anxious. Her room often remained lit late into the night. She began unconsciously biting her nails, losing hair, and often wore an expression of anxiety and exhaustion on her face. A slight fluctuation in her mock exam results could darken her mood for an entire day. Once, during a mock exam, I performed quite well, improving my ranking a bit, and I was in a good mood. Nijejia didn't actually do poorly on that exam, but it still fell a bit short of her own expectations. During dinner, as she watched me humming a tune while serving rice, she suddenly let out a cold laugh. "Don't you feel any sense of urgency at all?" she said with a bit of sharpness in her tone. I sat down and started eating. "Just study, and let everything else take its natural course." Take its natural course. Nijejia sounded as if she had heard a joke. Xiao, do you think good luck will always favor you? You were lucky in the middle school entrance exam, but the college entrance exam won't care about your luck. I swallowed the food in my mouth. "I don't think that way," she sneered coldly. "You're always like this, acting as if nothing matters. Taking advantage and still pretending to be innocent. I really hate you for it. College entrance exams are about real ability. Just wait and see." After taking a few bites, she put down her chopsticks and went back to her room to study. I continued eating my meal in a daze. In the last month before the college entrance exam, I ate well, slept soundly, and kept up with my study plan. Sunyi had already secured a guaranteed admission, but he still consistently picked me up and dropped me off without fail. On weekends, he would help me with the most challenging exam questions. Nijejia was plunged into deep anxiety. She would often cry in the middle of the night. Her parents had no choice but to get up and comfort her, coaxing her back to sleep. I was half asleep, awakened by faint sobs and hushed voices, turned on the light and glanced at the time. 3 in the morning, the living room light was on. I got out of bed to use the bathroom, saw a family of 3 sitting together. Nijejia was in the middle, her shoulders trembling, while her mother sat beside her, holding her and whispering words of comfort. Her father gently patted Nijejia's back. I tiptoed through the living room to the bathroom. They were so immersed in their own world that they didn't even notice me. Coming out of the bathroom, I returned to the room. That warm scene was shut out as the door closed. There was no sense of loss, nor any sadness. My heart was completely at peace, even closed my eyes and fell asleep right away. I had long accepted it. Mom and Dad's love is like dividing a cake. Nijejia got the biggest and most beautiful piece. As for me, having a small piece and not going hungry seems like something I should be content with. The final exam bell rang, and as I walked out of the exam hall, the blazing summer sunlight poured down on me. I squinted my eyes, feeling as if a heavy shackle on my body had loosened with a soft click. The school gate was packed with people, parents, flowers, hugs, and cheers. Mom spotted Nijejia right away and rushed over to hug her. "How did the exam go, Jejia?" Nijejia let out a long sigh of relief, her face glowing with the radiance of having shed a heavy burden. "That's great. It should be fine. That's good, that's good." Her father happily patted her on the shoulder. "I always knew my daughter was the best." Only then did Mom remember me. Turning her head, Xiao, how are you feeling?" I mumbled. Not bad is good. Not bad is good." Mom nodded, her attention quickly returning to Nijejia. "If Jejia performs exceptionally well this time, she might even make it to Tsinghua or Peking University. We'll have to hold a proper thank you banquet for the teachers then." They had already started dreaming about the future. I took out my phone and saw a message from Sunyi, who was rushing back from out of town. I replied with, "Finished the exam," then opened the class group chat, which was already buzzing with excitement as everyone discussed where to go for dinner and celebration that night. I looked up and said to my parents, "I have plans with my classmates tonight, dinner and karaoke. I might be back late." They were gathered around Nijejia, discussing estimated scores and college applications, and casually responded, "Don't stay out too late." The KTV private room was bustling with activity in the evening. The howling singing, the clattering of dice, and the sounds of laughter and play nearly lifted the roof. Our class had booked a large room, and I heard that several other classes were here too. Nijejia's class was right across from us. I huddled in a corner with a few close friends, sharing snacks and playing simple games, occasionally being pulled in to sing a couple of off-key songs. Midway, my parents sent a text saying they were going to bed, and Judja didn't have her keys, so they asked me to remember to let her know before I came back. I don't know how much time had passed. I was getting a bit tired and decided to head back first, thinking that Judja didn't have her keys. I greeted my friend and asked for the private room to go find her, pushing open the heavy soundproof door. Deafening music and a mix of smells rushed toward me. Inside, the lighting was dim, and shadowy figures moved about, making it impossible to tell who was who. An unfamiliar girl poked her head out, sizing me up. "Who are you looking for, Nijiajia?" I said. "I'm her sister." The girl's face showed a strange expression, carrying a hint of scrutiny and something indescribable. "So you're her sister," she called out. "Nijiajia, your sister is looking for you." The music in the private room was turned down, and the noisy chatter quieted. Dozens of eyes instantly fell on me, not exactly friendly, with a mix of curiosity, disdain, and even a hint of excited anticipation for the drama, completely baffling. "So it's you?" A girl with short hair stood up, crossed her arms, and looked me up and down. Her tone drawn out, repeated it again. "Oh, so you're that Ni Xiao Xiao. She's the girl who gets along well with Nijiajia." I was even more puzzled. "That's me. You look quite honest, but your actions are really disgusting," the short-haired girl sneered, her voice neither too loud nor too soft, just enough for everyone in the private room to hear. "Are you talking about me? Otherwise," she said disdainfully, being a mistress with such self-righteousness. A mistress? I was stunned. It's too absurd, giving the feeling that everyone is talking in their sleep. Still pretending, another boy also stood up, his tone unfriendly. "You know your sister likes Tsani, yet you shamelessly stick in between, clinging to him every day. Isn't that disgusting? You're such a pick-me girl." "Exactly," the short-haired girl added. "Jejia told us everything. You've been jealous of her since you were little, always trying to steal everything from her. Now you even want to take the person she likes. How could you do that to your own sister?" I searched for Jejia's figure in the dim light. She sat in the corner of the sofa, clutching a cup in her hand, head bowed, not looking at me. "Sis," I called out to her, "is that what you told them?" Jejia didn't speak, nor did she look at me. The girl pushed me. "I'm talking to you. Why are you looking for Jejia?" But she didn't manage to push me. For a moment, she was stunned. "Me, okay," I said, taking out my phone to call Tsani. "Who are you calling?" the girl asked warily. "The person involved," I said. "Let him speak." The call was connected immediately. I turned on the speakerphone. Tsani's background noise was a bit chaotic. "Xiao Xiao, I have something to tell you." A small sound came from the other end. "Where are you?" I gave the address of the KTV and said, "Let me ask you, The background noise suddenly grew loud again. It seemed he had started running, panting urgently as he said, "Don't say it, not over the phone, I'll be right there." "Let me say, what nonsense are you talking about?" I said patiently. "I mean," he hung up the phone. A busy tone came through. I looked up, everyone in the room exchanged glances. "All right then, it's better to clarify things face to face." I sent Tsani the private room number, then turned my gaze back to Jejia. She finally raised her head, the light sweeping across her pale cheeks, her lips pressed into a stubborn line. "Sis," I said, "if you explain clearly now, it won't be so embarrassing later." She pressed her lips tightly together, but remained silent the whole time. The short-haired girl spoke up indignantly on her behalf. "Don't threaten your sister." Tsani arrived very quickly. When he pushed the door open, his breathing hadn't yet steadied. A bit of sweat dampened the hair on his forehead. His face wore a rare expression of urgency and nervousness. His gaze froze instantly upon seeing the sea of dark heads in the private room, turning into a blank, bewildered emptiness. He blinked, his eyes quickly locking onto me. "Xiao Xiao," he spoke, his voice still a bit unsteady, carrying a slight pant from running, his eyes filled with pure confusion, uncertainly asking, "In front of so many people? What a mess, I'm a woman too." "No, I wanted to ask you. Did you start dating my sister without telling me?" It was his turn to be completely baffled. The young man's face was filled with confusion. He furrowed his brows, glanced in Jejia's direction, then looked back at me. His reply was crisp and decisive, even tinged with a hint of offended displeasure. "No, I haven't even spoken more than a few words with your sister." He paused, then added, "Did you communicate telepathically?" Someone let out a pft sound, then quickly covered their mouth. I turned to Enijia, her face completely lost its color, her lips trembling. The boy who had just stood up for her couldn't hold back any longer and shouted, "Aren't you childhood sweethearts? Everyone saw you riding to school together in the same car." "No," Sun-yi said calmly. He seemed to have figured out the situation. "I'm not even friends with Enijia. The reason I go to and from school with her is because I have to pick up and drop off Ni Xiao. She lives with Ni Xiao." His gaze swept past Enijia without the slightest pause, returning to me. "I'm only familiar with her." The boy's face flushed bright red instantly. He opened his mouth but couldn't utter a word. The short-haired girl and the others exchanged glances, the disdain and hostility in their eyes quickly fading, replaced by awkwardness and a hint of anger at being made fools of. The gaze then shifted towards Enijia, who had remained silent all along. Enijia buried her face, her shoulders trembling. I looked at the girl with short hair and said, "Apologize." Her face flushed and paled alternately, her fingers twisting the hem of her clothes. After holding back for a long time, she finally mumbled in a voice almost inaudible, "Sorry, and you too." I looked at that boy. He turned his face away and said very quickly and quietly, "I'm sorry." I didn't say anything more, turned around, and walked out. Sun-yi immediately followed, behind me, the moment the door closed. I heard the sudden explosion of voices inside. "Enijia, how could you do that? Wasn't it you who said the two of them, harming us?" The summer night breeze carried the lingering heat, sticking to the face, yet it cleared my mind a little. I suddenly realized, Enijia is jealous of me. This thought leaves me a bit at a loss. Since childhood, I have lived in the shadow of her immense halo. I've grown accustomed to being compared and overlooked, accustomed to everyone preferring her. I never thought that one day, she would be jealous of me. Sun-yi followed behind me like a mute. His footsteps were as light as a cat's. We were almost at the entrance of my building. I turned to look at him. "I'll help you get a taxi." He responded sullenly, looking at me. "What else? It's so late. You should go home and sleep." "And what else? Thank you for coming over in the middle of the night to speak up for me." "And what else?" I racked my brains. "Let me treat you to a meal tomorrow." Sun-yi didn't say anything. He took a step forward, moving a bit closer to me. The streetlight's glow fell on his face. I can see his long, delicate eyelashes clearly, and his pale pink lips. His eyes are very beautiful, I've always known. But at this moment, in those clear, cool eyes, I saw a kind of vivid emotion I had never seen before. The boy's indifferent brows and eyes suddenly came to life, tinged with a hint of annoyance. Mixed with a trace of barely noticeable nervousness, he lowered his head. His voice very soft. "I like you." After speaking, he raised his eyes and looked straight at me. I saw him gradually flush with warmth all over, starting from the base of his ears. A faint blush slowly spread across his face, like peach blossoms blooming on a branch in early spring. Bit by bit, it suffused and spread. It's turned pink. I was stunned. "Oh, thank you." Sun-yi widened his eyes, looking at me in disbelief. The blush on that beautiful face quickly faded, replaced by astonishment and a hint of grievance. Just like that, his voice sounded a bit tight. I licked my lips, feeling my throat go dry. "It's a bit sudden," I said. "Let me go back and digest it." Sun-yi pursed his lips, the light in his eyes dimming slightly. He lowered his gaze, his long eyelashes veiling the color of his eyes. "Oh," looking pitiful and aggrieved. But he still obediently nodded. "Then you go back," he said, his voice muffled. I watched him walk out of the residential area. Until he was out of sight, I just remembered, I forgot to book a taxi for him. I'll treat him to a meal tomorrow. Thinking, I turned around, and saw Enijia standing not far away. She stood in the shadows, and I had no idea how long she had been there. Her face was pale, her eyes red and swollen. Clearly, she had been crying. Her gaze towards me was very complex. We looked at each other for a few seconds. Neither of us spoke, all the way until we entered the house. The living room light was still on, and my parents' bedroom door was closed. I changed my shoes and was about to head back to my own room. Enijia suddenly spoke up, her voice hoarse and heavily nasal. "Ni Xiao." I turned to look at her. Her face was still streaked with tears, her eyes red and swollen, fixed on me with an unyielding glare. In them surged undisguised resentment and grievance, along with a kind of reckless, self-destructive madness. Are you pleased with yourself? She tugged at the corner of her mouth, trying to smile, but it looked even more pitiful than crying, making him humiliate me in front of so many people. Are you really that happy now? I didn't say anything. What exactly do I lack compared to you? Her voice suddenly rose, sharp in the quiet night. I'm prettier, smarter, and more outstanding than you. Why does he only have eyes for you? What makes you so special? It was as if she wanted to pour out all the resentment she had bottled up for over a decade. You're so ordinary. Yet you always have such good luck. Barely passing the high school entrance exam and still getting into the top school. You're clearly inferior to me in every way. So why are mom and dad starting to pay more attention to you now? Why does even the person I like only revolve around you? And I Xiao. What makes you so special? You can't do anything. You only know how to play and giggle foolishly. But why? Why does he still like you? She screamed until her voice was hoarse, tears streaming down her face, filled with a twisted kind of pain. It was terrifyingly unfamiliar. I watched her quietly. So he should like you, just because I'm not as pretty or as smart as you. But there are people in the world who are prettier and smarter than you. Why doesn't he go for the prettiest and smartest one? She was left speechless by my words, her chest heaving violently. Nijiajia, I said, looking into her eyes, word by word. The world doesn't revolve around you. Just because you like something doesn't mean it's yours. And just because you're prettier and smarter than me doesn't mean you're entitled to everything. Liking someone isn't a competition. There's no scoring system. It's a very personal matter. Just like how mom and dad love Nijiajia more. That's their choice. I can't change it, but I can choose how to live my own life. I said, don't always take what I have as something that should be yours. On the day the college entrance exam results came out, the family was predictably tense. Everyone was gathered around the computer in the living room, and Nijiajia checked first. The scores and ranking that came out were almost the same as those from her mock exams. She breathed a sigh of relief and immediately felt happy. Mom also let out a long sigh of relief and hugged her, saying, that's great. I knew my Jiajia was the best. Dad also beamed with joy, saying, well done, well done. As long as you can stay steady, that's what matters. They gathered around Nijiajia and began discussing how to fill out the application, debating which schools and majors were better. I leaned closer to the screen to enter my exam admission number. I stared at the numbers on the screen, momentarily stunned. I looked at them again, more carefully this time. Xiao, have you found it yet? Mom asked in a spare moment. How much? I read out a number. The living room fell silent for a moment. Mom suddenly turned her head. How much? Say that again. I repeated it once more. Just 2 points higher than Nijiajia. This time, even Nijiajia looked over. Her expression changed. This is much higher than your usual scores. Dad leaned in to look at my screen. Is it real? Really? Oh, that's great. Mom came to her senses, a smile spreading across her face. You, child, usually so quiet, but you really step up when it matters. Nijiajia stood to the side and fell silent. After discussing it, my parents decided to hold a joint celebration banquet for both of us. The banquet was scheduled at a nice hotel. Quite a few people have come. The teachers have also arrived. My homeroom teacher is an enthusiastic and cheerful middle-aged woman who has always liked me. She took my parents aside and couldn't stop talking. I've watched Xiao grow and improve. She's steady, very reliable. Throughout her 3 years of high school, she took things step by step. Even though she doesn't say much, she knows what she's doing. She actively participates in all kinds of activities, like sports meets and decorating the class culture wall. She's really enthusiastic about it. She gets along well with her classmates, and everyone likes her. This child is thoughtful, kind, and knows how to be considerate of others. You, as parents, have really raised her well. It's clear she grew up in a loving environment. She's so bright and positive. As she spoke, she flipped through her phone's photo album. Mom and Dad looked at those photos, their expressions growing increasingly unnatural. In the photo, I am wearing my school uniform, smiling brightly. Gathered together with friends, the smiles on my parents' faces gradually became somewhat stiff and forced in front of the teacher's sincere praise. They responded vaguely with, yes, and, thank you for your concern, teacher. His gaze, however, was somewhat evasive, not daring to meet the teacher's frank eyes. The atmosphere had already become somewhat awkward. When it came to talking about Nijiajia, her parents finally had something to say. Jiajia has been outstanding since she was little. I passed the piano level 10 exam. I've hosted evening parties. They kept talking on and on. Everyone sitting at the table was an adult who couldn't see the subtle difference. The homeroom teacher's smile suddenly took on a rather intriguing expression. After the banquet, I went to see the teacher off. I walked with her for a while. The summer sun was dazzling. Teacher, thank you, I said. The homeroom teacher patted my shoulder. Xiao Xiao, you're a good kid. When you go to college in the future, be happy. She looked at me with gentle eyes. Sometimes, parents aren't always a safe harbor. I nodded. But remember, she said, you are worthy of love, even if they don't give enough. You must love yourself well. I looked at her, feeling a bit choked up. I will, I said. She hugged me, got in the car, and left. I stood by the roadside, looking up at the sun in the sky. It was so bright that I couldn't even open my eyes. It's so hot. The air is shimmering with the heat, but it feels wonderful. It reminds me of many years ago, the little girl who secretly vowed in her heart to grow up quickly and leave this place. Now, she has finally done it. When she returned home in the evening, her parents probably sensed something. The atmosphere at home was subtly tense. They bought gifts for Nijia. It was the necklace she had always wanted. For me, it was another necklace from the same brand as Nijia's. Mom handed me the box, her eyes filled with a cautious, probing look. Xiao Xiao, see if you like it. I noticed Jia likes this, thinking you sisters. I opened the box. It's very beautiful, but this is what Nijia likes, not what I wanted. I never wear necklaces either. Thank you, I said. It's beautiful. I'm glad you like it. Mom breathed a sigh of relief. I closed the box and pushed it back. But, I said, I don't have any use for it. Mom was taken aback. Why not? Necklaces look so pretty on girls. Dad stood by, wanting to say something but holding back. Then, what do you want? Mom will buy it for you. No need, I said. I don't lack anything. Mom's smile began to falter a little. The expression on her face was a mix of embarrassment from being rejected and a helplessness of wanting to make amends but not knowing where to start, and deeper down, a guilt she might not even be aware of herself. I went back to my room, closing the door. I heard low voices coming from the living room. Why is this child like this? Is she still angry? When the university acceptance letters arrived, Nijia and I went to different cities. I chose a university far away from home. A few days before leaving, when preparing to sleep, I faintly heard suppressed sobs and my mother's voice coming from Nijia's room next door. The quilt should be folded like this. The duvet cover like this. Underwear and socks packed separately. Use this small bag. Oh, you child. How can you still be so careless, Mom? Please take a day off tomorrow to take me to school, help me make the bed, organize my things. I don't know how to do any of it. It was Nijia's voice, choked with tears. Jia, you're grown up now. There are some things you should learn to do on your own. Mom's voice sounded weary, tinged with a hint of impatience. I really can't take time off that day. Why can't you? You used to help me with everything. You're just playing favorites, aren't you? Is it because Xiao did better on her exams than me, so you think she's better and don't care about me anymore? Nijia's voice suddenly rose, turning sharp. You're being ridiculous. Mom's voice grew stern, tinged with the irritation of having her thoughts exposed. What does this have to do with Xiao Xiao? If she can handle things on her own now, why can't you learn to do the same? We can't be with you forever. Her words gradually faded, leaving only the intermittent sobs of Nijia and Mom's weary sighs. A long time passed before someone gently knocked on my door. It was Mom. She came in, looking at my almost packed suitcase with a complicated expression. Have you packed everything? She asked. Yeah, pretty much. Do you know how to make the bed? Fold the blankets. She seemed to be making conversation for the sake of it. I can, I said. We had a life skills competition in elementary school. My mother's words caught in her throat. She looked at me, for a long time. Her gaze was so complex that I could hardly discern the emotions within. Finally, she just said wearily, be careful on the road. Take care of yourself over there. Call home often. I didn't respond. College life is busier than imagined, yet also more liberating. I joined clubs, learned to play the guitar, spent time reading in the library, worked part-time on weekends, and planned trips with classmates during holidays. I kept my schedule packed, met many new friends, and won several awards, both big and small. Being busy brings fulfillment and accelerates growth. I didn't go home at all during my entire freshman year. I said I was studying for exams during the winter break. And I found an internship over the summer. I call my parents once a week. But there's not much to say, so I usually hang up after just a few words. At first, my parents would ask, "When are you coming back?" But gradually they stopped mentioning it and only reminded me to take care of yourself. Sun-E and I are in the same city. Being in a relationship doesn't seem to have changed much. We still get along the same way as before, just a bit closer. During the summer vacation of our sophomore year, we both stayed on campus. Sun-Ye's parents said they were coming here for a trip and would drop by to see us. On the day my uncle and aunt arrived, we went together to the airport to pick them up. As soon as we met, my aunt gave me a big hug and said affectionately, "Xiao Xiao, you seem a bit thinner than before. Is studying too tiring?" We chose a rather elegant private kitchen restaurant for the meal. The atmosphere throughout the meal was relaxed and pleasant. They asked me about my college life. Listen to my stories of fun and setbacks, their eyes gentle, offering nothing but encouragement and affirmation. When Auntie heard that I had received a scholarship, she was so happy that she wanted to give me a red envelope. Uncle, on the other hand, seriously discussed my future career plans with me, offering thoughtful advice. Sun-E still didn't say much, sitting quietly beside me, occasionally serving me dishes. As he did these things, his expression remained calm and unruffled. His profile, under the soft lighting of the restaurant, had clean and sharp lines, a straight nose bridge, and long eyelashes that drooped down. The aunt chuckled to herself and took a photo, posting it on her social media feed. I only noticed that Mom had also liked it when I was giving my own like. The call came in quickly. I got up and went to the outside balcony to answer the phone. "Xiao Xiao, are you coming back for the new year this year?" "This year, my academic and practical schedule is quite tight, so I might not be able to come back either." Mom paused for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried an unnatural sob and a trembling she was trying hard to suppress. "Xiao Xiao, then we'll come to your place this year and spend the new year with you, okay?" I don't know how to respond. I can only remain silent. You never came back, and in my heart, I know you're still angry with us. She sniffled, the sob in her voice growing more pronounced. "I'm sorry, Xiao Xiao. Mommy is saying sorry to you, because your sister is pretty, smart, and learns everything quickly, so your dad and I, without even realizing it, wanted to give all the best resources to her, hoping to raise a child who could make us proud. We neglected your feelings, but Xiao Xiao, Mommy does love you." Her voice broke, and she finally cried. "Please don't be angry with Mom anymore, okay? Mom saw the news on your school's website. You won so many awards, you've lost so much weight. Is it very hard, Mom?" Mom feels so sad. The apology I had been waiting for so long suddenly landed lightly at this moment. Mom admitted it, because I'm smart, because I'm pretty. Even though I already knew the answer, I still felt sad, that sense of powerlessness that ran through my entire childhood, during countless nights when I cried silently under the covers, and when I watched them laughing and playing around Nijia while I felt like an outsider. I had imagined this scene countless times. They could see me, they could recognize that unfairness, and they could say, "I'm sorry," to me. It took me many, many years to finally accept the fact that they didn't love me that much. After repeated disappointments, I learned to stop stretching my neck in anticipation, and instead stumbled forward to fight for what I wanted. I built myself a small but sturdy world. In this world, I learned to love myself, praise myself, and tell myself, "Ni Xiao Xiao, you are doing great." My world no longer needs them. It's been so many years. I have finally stepped into the bright future that I secretly envisioned for myself as a teenager. "But I don't want to forgive you, Mom," I said. "Dad too." The breathing on the phone paused, as if suddenly choked. "You gave me life, raised me, and supported my education. I remember this kindness. I won't fall short on any of the filial duties I owe you in the future." Looking at the scattered lights of the distant city, I slowly said, "I can't hate you, but I can't love you anymore either. Let it be. From now on, besides necessary contact, let's skip those forced intimate family reunions during holidays. Playing along with family harmony only makes me more miserable. I have been suffering for over 10 years. I don't want to be in pain anymore." There came incessant sobbing from the other side. I hung up the phone. The terrace door was opened. Sun-E came in. He didn't ask a word, just gently wrapped me in his arms from behind. His embrace always carried a reassuring coolness and a faint, refreshing scent. The force from the arm around me was held tightly. I turned and buried my face in his chest, listening to the sound of his heartbeat. Does it hurt? He lowered his head, his chin gently brushing against the top of my hair. I shook my head and also nuzzled against his chest. Not too bad, but it feels a lot more relaxed. I looked up at him. He lowered his eyes to look at me, and in those usually emotionless, smoky gray eyes, my reflection was now clearly visible, so focused, as if the whole world had narrowed down to just me. I suddenly laughed, pinching his cheek. Sun-yi, you know what, when I was a kid, I was really childish. I secretly swore to myself that when I grew up, I had to meet someone who liked me more than Nijia. He let my fingers run wild, the light softening, like snow melting in early spring. Then you succeeded, he said, his tone as certain as stating a fact. Many people already like you, however. He pursed his lips, his long eyelashes fluttering slightly. A hint of his usual aloofness seeped out, revealing a faint, almost stubborn concern. Am I the first? With a childlike sense of calculation, I laughed, drawing out my tone. Of course, it's not. Sun-yi was on alert.